Good evening, everyone. It is Thursday night. It is 8 p.m. It is your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast brought to you by Big Gold Belt Media. And let me tell you, we've been talking about for weeks. We are on the road to WrestleMania, but the theme of this week seems to be that folks are not happy. They are unsatisfied, I would say, for I think a number of different reasons. And we're going to get into that tonight. It's a bumpy road to WrestleMania, so we will talk about that. We'll also get into some more stuff we got going on. Let's see. What else do we have here? We have Mariah May, rumors surrounding her and her contract status. We also have Gail Kim and TNA Wrestling parting ways. Rumors about Saraya and her next moves. All kinds of stuff. All that and more, folks. Get ready. Your Big Old Belt Wrestling podcast starts right now.
Big Old Belt, Big Old Belt, Big Old Belt, Big Old Belt. All I really want is that Big Old Belt, Big Old Belt, Big Old Belt, Big Old Belt. All I really need is that Big Old Belt.
Welcome to the show, everyone out there. Glad you are here with us this evening for the Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast. We are on season 5, episode 8 tonight, and we are so glad you are here along with us. I am Will in the center of your screen. To my right, we have the giant crab Jamal, and to my left, Big Gold Belt Media Editor-in-Chief Najir is here. Old 2 Chains. Glad to have the guys here with me tonight for another fine evening of wrestling talk for the next hour. How's it going, guys?
All is well. Good to see everyone.
Baseball.
That's what I was figuring. I was like, this is a big day here. I'm surprised you're here tonight. I thought you might be traveling somewhere.
I wasn't here last week, so I couldn't do responsibly. I couldn't do 2 weeks in a row.
That's a loyal person there.
That's dedication.
Dedication.
That's dedication.
We like to see it.
I'm here for you.
There you go. Opening day around the league today. So there you go. Baseball is back. Spring is here.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned when we started the show, we are on the road to WrestleMania. We've been talking about it for months now. And one of the themes has been, WrestleMania is later than it has ever been before this year. It's not till April 19th and 20th. It is Easter weekend even this year, the way it works. Easter's late and WrestleMania is going to be late. But usually around now, we would be at the point of, WrestleMania is in a week. And some years it's even been this week, the last week of March. But this year, we still got more weeks to go. And a theme I have seen all week long from folks. As soon as Raw ended, I was hearing it last week. There was rumblings last week, and we didn't get into it last week, but it just amplified this week. Folks are not happy. People online are just, of course, they're always complaining anyway. But it seems like they're complaining even more. And the general theme is, the build to WrestleMania is bad. It's boring. I don't like what they're doing. This is just weak. It's flat. None of the matches are exciting. It's just, these people are not having it. But you look at these buildings, they are still full. They are still rocking. They're on this European tour. And that is something that we'll get into here in a second. Is this European tour part of the issue? Because some people are blaming it on that. There's other stuff people are saying, but hell, maybe we start with that. They're on this European tour. So last week they were in Scotland. This week they were in Scotland. The week before they were in Italy and Brussels for the 2 shows last week. This week we got Scotland, and we have, I think, London for SmackDown tomorrow night, I think, is the location. And then next week, a whole nother week before they come back. So we have 3 weeks overseas that they've been doing.
Yeah.
2 Chains, I'll go to you first, because we didn't get into this last week. And that's part of this add to this is Netflix has been, since the first Euro shows they've been doing, they're like, hey, we're going to show these live. So 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon, no problem. We're going to throw them up right then. They're on demand right afterwards. So it's not like you have to wait to see them. You can start them whenever, but they're absolutely throwing them up as soon as they're happening. So middle of the day for us folks here in the States. But the rest of the world, hey, it's prime time if you're over in Europe. Is that maybe part of the issue? That these shows are in Europe and the time's thrown off, and it's causing that to change things up, to change the bill. One of the things I've heard this week is these are house shows that they're recording and sending over here. European house shows. What do you think?
Yeah, it's ridiculous narratives because if you ask me, this is year one, and they are trying things different. And with Netflix and streaming services being in the way they are and the way they're able to distribute live products, yeah, of course, us spoiled folks, especially us spoiled folks on the East Coast, which everything is typically catered around. Of course, yes, because it's different, there's going to be complaints. Everybody has a complaint when there's change. So on that note, I'm cool with them, dropping the shows as they air live there. I think that's good, and I think there's going to be some unknown benefits to that later on. As far as serving the world and not just America, also good for them. I also think that because the business model and really how they really revolutionized everything at this rate in all of sports. Yes, they're leading the way, and I think hitting these other smaller markets and appeasing to them, and the money is rolling in. Of course, the Americans aren't going to be happy, but the world ain't just America. So I'm also not mad because the other audiences are getting things. But in terms of the bill, let's go back to something we talked about a little bit about last year. Is that I'm very glad that they dodged March Madness. That's not good for anybody. So the fact that they did move from that, and even with baseball starting up, moving from your competition and going to a nice sweet spot so that all eyes are focused on them. Much like what Triple H said at the press conference right now, does it feel like we're on the road to WrestleMania now? I am definitely cautioning on the side of just wait. They're hitting these little spots. This is definitely a lot of them experimenting. Now being in the streaming service era, but also too John Cena and wherever he goes in his last hurrah, if it is his last hurrah, because I think I feel a little different about this now. I'm not mad how they're servicing everything, and I think this is rightfully so for one of the most iconic wrestlers of the world. Is that it's right that he gets to see the world in the ring one more time all around. So the global domination that they've always been hinting at, that they're actually doing it, this makes sense. So I'm cool with it. And when we get down to the 11th hour, I'm sure everything's going to ramp up and everything's going to be hitting on cylinders and the whole world will be fine. And once they get to Vegas, we're going to have one of the biggest shows yet.
Okay. Crab, is the road to WrestleMania weak? Is it being phoned in from Europe? How are we feeling about this?
So what exactly is the complaint? Like you're saying that is it being phoned in? Is it weak? How do we know that that's what's actually happening? And how do we know that people just are fantasy booking and it's not going their way and they're pissed about it?
Oh, we know that happens all the time, regardless.
All the time, regardless. Doesn't matter.
Meanwhile, folks, WWE 2K25 is available on all platforms. Yes. If you want a fantasy book, go have at it.
We will talk about matches in a second because one of the complaints I'm seeing is how the matches are being formatted, but we'll get to that in a second. Continue.
Now, so there's the obvious counter question and counterpoint of, well, how do you know that you don't like it if it hasn't happened and won't happen for another month?
Right.
It's like you want it to be bad to justify your shitty booking. So there's that. And then the other part of that is that, well, if not this, then what? Mm-hmm. Now, the direct answer to your question is do I think that the road to WrestleMania is bumpy? It's always bumpy. When has it never been bumpy? It's bumpy the day the Royal Rumble ends. As soon as the men's Royal Rumble ends and the show goes off the air, people don't walk to the internet to say that this person should have won, or this person lasted an hour.
True.
Or how come this person only gets their one spot and never gets a shot? Yeah. How come we see this? How come we see that? How come we don't see that? And that happened this year, right on time. Oh, damn it, we got Charlotte Flair again. Oh, yep. Damn it, we know that Jey Uso isn't going to go for Cody's belt. Oh, hell, we and so on and so forth. I'm not excited about Gunther versus the Uso. I'm not excited about Cena versus Cody. Blah blah blah. Cool. what would you book then based on the roster that they have, based on the people on the top that they have? Which leads to the actual problem. Everything that we know about what Triple H has been doing, what Triple H has been booking, is, it's been hit or miss. There are a lot of things that I could say that he hit on, early NXT and so on. Even after, Vince's ousting and Triple H's, takeover and stuff like that. But who did he learn from? How did he learn how to book a show? You don't sit next to the man for 30 years and don't take a bit of that from him and go, okay, it's similar but different. And that's really what it is. It's not like Triple H reinvented the wheel. He just changed the tires. So the question now is, and I pose the question to you, does Triple H have a Vince McMahon problem when it comes to his booking?
A Vince McMahon problem, and I guess what specific?
Well,
what
specifically in that leaning on the old toys, specifically on not taking the risk that the fans want at the moment that the fans want it. Not that he has to placate them, but just in I'm sure there are guys in WWE. I'm sure there's guys in NXT, men and women that you would like to see called up, inserted into a picture, insert it here, insert it there. How many times are we going to see the same 5 or 6 faces? Rollins, Cena, obviously, they're giving him a year. Roman Reigns, Cody, who is the champion. How many more people are we going to see? CM Punk, McIntyre. How many people that are bubbling just under the surface that got to wait another year? Because it's seen its time now.
Hey, listen, let's be smart here. The last time they tried to run in Vegas, tickets ain't moved the way they expected it, and it went from Allegiance over to MGM Garden. So
the downside.
Exactly. So when it comes down to your biggest show, where all eyes are set on it in an arena, a stadium that once defeated you, you want to put your heavy hitters in. The biggest thing they have always had to worry about wasn't appeasing the fans, but it was definitely about injuries and availability of your top talent to book the upper echelon of everything, and let that be the key to driving all your ticket sales. Yeah, I get it. There's going to be some young talent that, you said they worked hard to get to this point, and they can go out there and do the wrestles, but can they sell the tickets? That's the biggest thing. This is their big show, and for all you old school folks, in terms of basketball, you always wanted your best teams, the Chicago Bulls, your Miami Heat, the Boston Celtics, But when it came down to the Spurs, they never moved the needle. Great fucking team. We'll never ever question that. But were they the big highlight one that was going to make everybody get out there to want to see them play? No. And I think it's the same thing. But
the counterpoint to that is that isn't that a fan issue though? Because if you're selling us, high profile this and high profile that, the Spurs literally went back to back and then won another one. Houston went back to back and should have won another one. And these aren't the sexiest teams. Nobody wanted to see Milwaukee win, if we're going to stick with the basketball analogy, because it's fucking Wisconsin. So the idea
not your major cities.
Right. But
LA,
then again,
New York.
When the Lakers win a championship, that didn't count. It was COVID. When the Patriots win another championship, okay, well, Brady, isn't Joe Montana. So which is it? It's a fan issue.
It's always the fan. It's always the fan.
So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. And that's why I say, just in general, just let Triple H work. Because I don't think on paper right now, what we have and the trajectory they're going, it's not going to be Kofi and Brock. It's not going to be Daniel Bryan losing in 15 seconds. It's not going to be WrestleMania, 2001 with that shitty battle royal and Cena versus was it Undertaker? That was bad. It's not going to be we're missing the heyday of WrestleMania 17 or 18. But it's not going to be that bad. Was it 25? Was it Ric Flair versus Shawn Michaels? It's there have been. What was the one that the Miz host?
The Miz and Cena. That one.
Yeah, it's not going to be that. And that was in the latter ones in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
So we know that we've seen worse. We know that we could see better. But based on the talent that they have right now, I don't think that he's doing as bad as a job as the internet says it is.
Not at all.
But I also don't think that, as of right now, we are seeing, them firing on all cylinders either. And I wonder if that is, Vince had he played it really safe when it came to these bigger events, your SummerSlams, your WrestleMania, the big four. And to your point, it is because you want to put the biggest, best, most name, biggest names in all of sports and entertainment out there. But that's also kind of to the point of, well, we've seen this already.
Let me speak to that specifically about the big names, because there was a specific thing I saw about that this week. First of all, Cupcake's here. How you doing, Cupcake? Good to see you again. Always glad to have you here with us here on the Big Old Belt Wrestling Podcast. Now, let me bring this up, because one of the specific complaints I saw this week was that they're setting up too many multi-person matches on this show. And that part of the multi-person matches is, of course, trying to work names into a spot on the show. So as it stands right now, okay, we got Io versus Bianca versus Rhea for the women's title. We have Roman versus CM Punk versus Seth Rollins in a triple threat. We got a rumored Intercontinental title one that they're setting up with Braun Breaker, with probably Penta and Dominic and Finn Balor. We got tag team ones that they're setting up on SmackDown with the Street Profits and the Machine Guns and DIY and Pretty Deadly and the Garzas. And probably ones for the U.S. title too with LA Knight and Jimmy Uso and Braun Strowman. So, yes. But in a way, I'm like, they do that every year. Every year they do the multi-person matches to get people on the show one way or another. Especially now they got 2 nights. So, I get what your folks are saying with this. But at the same time, it's like, that's the story every year, that they put these multi-person matches on to get people on the card. And Lord knows the flip side of that, if they didn't do it, then we'd be hearing the complaints, why Jimmy Uso ain't got a spot. Jay get a spot, Jimmy don't. That'd be the next thing.
Listen, don't forget about the era when everybody was wondering why the Usos were always on the pre-show. And now that they're ones in the main event, it's an issue too. So, like, yeah, it's a fan thing, and I think it's one of those old school lessons we all learned very early in our life is don't judge a book by its cover. Like, yes, on paper we see what's happening here, but if there's anything we certainly can trust Triple H on as a very recent is expect the unexpected, because the moment you think it's going to go one way, it completely can go another way. The John Cena heel turn is one of the craziest things that's happened in pro wrestling in the last X amount of many years, and if they had that up their sleeve, especially with all of my concerns I had about The Rock and is he a face, is he a heel, he's the final boss, he's the corporate man, like, I'm not understanding this little countdown thing he's doing, and somehow, some way, some poor writer, and I'm going to say it was an intern, spent endless hours trying to web this all together, and they did it. And now all that Rock shenanigans is to bed, and we got a side of Cena we always wanted. We are appeased just because we waited. And I think once we get to WrestleMania, it's going to be another discussion the next day of, holy hell, they went this direction when we thought they were going to go this direction, and so on. So,
and let's keep this in mind. There are 3 weeks left, 3 full weeks plus SmackDown tomorrow. So that's 7 shows to get done between now and then. We got 1 more week in Europe. Then the final 2 weeks will be back here in the States. So they had to save something. If everything was done now, then the complaint would be, oh, they're just coasting for these last couple weeks and just hyping matches. That's all they're doing. Yeah. So clearly there are more shoes to drop. There's more things to happen. The Rock hasn't shown his face since Elimination Chamber. There's more coming. But, yeah, you can't do everything all at once.
So let me address the European issue.
The multi-man match complaint to me was just funny as hell. It's like, that's every year they do.
Yeah. I mean, they literally have a whole pay-per-view that is 2 pay-per-views that is one giant multi-man match. And then they turn around and do it again for the women. So, I mean, that's kind of what they do for the bigger events. About the European issue, so the biggest, the run-up to the biggest show of the year. Now, fan participation means a lot to people. It's something that means next to nothing to me personally. But seeing a crowd getting hype, whatever they got to do is a thing that means a lot to people in general, right?
Right.
So if that's the case, okay, cool. You do that in front of the European crowds because that's probably the only time, one of two times they're going to come over there. If they do it regularly, it's going to be once in the spring and once in the fall. And also, you get them in on it because it is the road to WrestleMania. They're never going to get a show. So they're excited for the scraps that they get, which just happens to be a Raw in March. So yes, if fan participation means that much to you, then it makes sense to put it in the most desperate, fanatical of your fan base. So I don't get it. I mean, no, I don't like the goofy Starker chants that they do over there and you know, taking over the show and all this other stuff too. I think that shit is dumb. But that's what WWE sells you on. They sell you on the hype of the crowd and everything like that. So
The atmosphere.
the atmosphere, exactly. You know, the electricity, as people call it. The Rock pointed at his measles outbreak and calling it goosebumps. Okay, fine. But if that's what it means, you know, then that's what it is. It makes total sense to do that. So I'm sorry, Lubbock, Texas, you missed out because Belgium is a hype fucking crowd. It is what it is. Now, as far as the shows being broadcast live, what's the problem? That's something that we've been arguing for since the 80s. Because
we just went through it with AEW where they didn't do it and put it on tape delay like almost 24 hours later.
Right, 100%. So, you know, the show is meant to be consumed live. Just because you can't watch it, okay, cool. You can watch it later. Oh, well, you can't get us stay off the internet. These are your problems. But I think that if, you know, the Europeans deserve a show at a decent hour, you know, because 40 weeks out of the year, they got to wake up at midnight to watch a show that starts at 1 o'clock live. Because that's the time it airs over there, 1 to 3 a.m. in Central Europe and earlier in the UK. And for 3 or 4 consecutive weeks, you can't handle the show coming on at 3 o'clock or noon? Like, come on. Like, what are we actually talking about? And then we're not even talking about the fact that you're going to miss it. You just, I don't know, would just watch it later because it's already in the vault on Netflix or on Peacock or Hulu or wherever it airs later. So, I mean, I think people just want to, they really just want to, like, Peacock and parrot these things. Like, oh my God, the world, stop it. Stop it. It's not that serious.
Yeah, we can't say the road is horrible to WrestleMania until we're there yet. We got to get through these next 3 weeks. There's more to come. People are jumping ahead and saying, oh, no, they ruined it. They botched it up this year. And it's like, we're not there yet.
Well, okay, well, then fine. So let's actually say why it could be perceived as bad. Just say that you hate Charlotte Flair and go. That really is what it comes down to. You know, I mean, if Charlotte was given the Cena treatment and she had to be inserted into these places that give her an instant shot to WrestleMania, which of course was the first time I realized it, like, wait a minute. The road to WrestleMania has a lot of damn like easy pass lanes and express lanes, you know.
There's always a way to get where you need to be at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I mean,
one way or another.
You know, there's one guy that has to take the local lanes and stop at every stoplight, and there's another guy in a hover car that's gone over the top of everybody. And it's like, well, wait a minute. See, you had the Royal Rumble, and then he had the Elimination Chamber, and then there was another thing, and then if he won Money in the Bank, and it's like, oh, how many goddamn chances does he need? But if they did that with Charlotte, and they kind of did, they just cut out the other fluff. I mean, it's yes, I'm not a fan of Charlotte either. I don't necessarily need to see that match. But I'm not going to bury the entire show, both nights of the show, and just get on my high horse and say how awful it is because of the fact that, you know, they're setting up some things that I may not like at the time. I mean, hell, the show is 2 nights. You know, if I don't want to see something, it's a bathroom break. It's a Sunday night. Baseball's on. So, I mean, it's fine. The show will be the show. And more importantly, you don't have to pay $80 for it anymore.
Yeah, thank God.
Right. So, if you're going to watch it at a bar, Dave and Buster's or whatever, just grab an extra order of wings. Just to skip over the things that you don't like, or don't even watch it live. Just fast forward through the shit that you don't watch and watch it in an hour and a half. You don't have to. They're not making the show for you.
Yeah. You don't have to watch the whole thing.
You
don't have to watch the wrestlers you don't like. Lord knows I do it all the time.
Right.
Not being an adult though. That's hard for a lot of people.
Well, this is also true. But no, but like as far as like WrestleMania goes and the build to it, truthfully, I am not the most excited that I've ever been for it. But I wouldn't call it necessarily bumpy. I do think that this is a product over everything that we talked about. What we haven't talked about is how late it is in the year.
Yeah.
And the fact that they have to fill so much more time since the Royal Rumble. And they are also cutting back on premium live events. So you don't have, a Taboo Tuesday or Bad Blood or Backlash or
Fastlane,
Fastlane or something. You don't have 3 or 4 pay-per-views since the Royal Rumble to throw in, anymore. It's really like 2.
There's
and then WrestleMania's in the middle of April.
Yeah. And the way it worked out with NBC, they couldn't even throw like a Saturday night's main event near. So it's like, there's an extra number of weeks here that would not normally be here. And it's just it is what it is.
And I think part of that is why they chose to go to Europe, because these aren't pay-per-views, but these shows have a little bit of extra sizzle on it because they're in Europe, so they want to punch up above their weight for that crowd. So they're not doing a pay-per-view, but it is a special show because it's in Brussels or Paris or whatever.
3-week European tour has added a little something, a little spice.
It has added a little spice to it, for a number of different reasons. But I think that is kind of like the trade-off between that and getting a B-level pay-per-view. Because which would you rather have? Like a decent show in Milan or Great Balls of Fire? Do you need that pay-per-view again? No, I didn't think so.
Yeah, it just is what it is this year. It's a different year with the late start, and we'll see. The next year, who knows? Well, once we get a date for next year, we'll see how it is next year. It might not be so darn late. It's just how it worked out with the calendar and Vegas wanting them to come in that weekend to pop the city for a non-Vegas weekend, and there you go. Cupcake threw in here. I can't stand Charlotte Flair and LA. I want to be the Rock Knight. Well, I'm sure they're both. We know Charlotte's gonna be on the show. I'm sure LA Knight will be too, but I'm sure Dwayne will also be there to make up for it. So I think you're going to get a little bit of all three of them. Avoid the parts you don't like. It's easy enough. All right, let's do this. Let's switch it up. Let's do our break here, our halftime break, and then when we come back, let's talk about Mariah May, because there's rumors about Mariah May and the status of where she stands in 2025. And the timing of all of it is really interesting to me. So we'll get into that. We got more coming after that in the second half, folks. So we're glad you're here with us. Stay where you are. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. We'll be back right after this.
Looking to get your brand in front of people who eat, sleep, and breathe entertainment? Big Gold Belt Media is the place to be. We're all about reporting on movies, TV shows, conventions, and everything in between. And we want your brand to be a part of the action. Partnering with us means your sponsorships get featured right in the midst of our content. Plus, we're going to hype you up on all of our social media, connecting you with an audience that loves discovering new things from trusted voices in entertainment. We're easy to find. Just look for us on Big Gold Belt on all your social media platforms. Don't wait, reach out today, and let's start building something amazing together. Your spotlight is waiting here at Big Gold Belt Media, biggoldbelt.com.
Thanks for being with us here tonight for your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast, folks. We're here each and every Thursday, 8 p.m., streaming live, and then we keep things available during the week on YouTube. So if you're looking for this video after the fact, it's available on YouTube and also on all your favorite podcast platforms. So lots of ways to listen during the week to your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. All right. Other rumors going around in wrestling. This one came out of nowhere and kind of surprised me, but the timing of it is very intriguing to me. So I think it was first reported by Fightful, and it seems like everyone's backing up the reporting of this. The rumor going around is that Mariah May's AEW contract is probably up early summer. So in the next couple months. I don't know, or could be true, could be not, but it seems to be that is the scuttlebutt going around that Mariah May could be on the market very soon. What immediately jumped out at me with this was like, well, damn, the timing sure is something. She just had her big blow-off match with Toni Storm. They literally threw up the graphic at the end of it that said the end. Really raised her profile over the last couple of years with this whole Toni Storm program. They put this huge capper on it, this huge bloodbath of a match, gets all kinds of publicity, and then damn, her contract might be up the next couple months later. The timing for her, if this is happening, is tremendous. I think the timing for her is amazing, and it makes me think, okay, if I'm Mariah May, this is absolutely the time to test the waters and see what interest there is out there. Because if I'm her, I am getting my that paycheck is going up one way or another. Because she couldn't be any. I don't think she can be any hotter than she is right now, coming off that series. So, I guess the question is, if you're Mariah May, how do you play this? How do you play this? Because to me, I'd be entertained. I would be entertaining all offers. I hear a lot of people were saying she can't go anywhere. Tony needs to open the wallet and lock her up. And I'm like, well, I'm sure Tony wants to keep her. But at the same time, if I'm her, I got a lot of options in front of me. And in some ways, I'm like, a fresh start somewhere else might absolutely be the move coming off that high profile program. So I don't know. Crap. What are we thinking?
Yeah, I think that this isn't about money at this point. This is about residuals and everything else that you get down the line. If it were just about, the weekly paycheck, then yeah, sure. Tony Khan could make her an offer that she couldn't refuse. But I think that what would elevate her standing as a wrestler in general, and this is the question that we always ask when it comes to what a wrestler values and what they could value. If it's about money, then everybody's got money. Take the offer that you want. If it's about you're raising your standing, well, WWE, as we've seen, is slowly taking over the wrestling world in a meaningful way for the first time in their company's history. They are doing things they've never done before. They're going places that they haven't been before in the way that they haven't been there. Everything is leveling up. Their partnerships in Saudi Arabia. We just talked about how they are in Europe. And I truly do believe that Europe will be getting a WrestleMania sooner than later. So American fans, you're going to be mad and get madder. And if you're a wrestler that has some leverage, you got to look at those things and go, well, I've done almost all that I can in AEW in this very short time. And I'm not going to say that she'll never be better than she is now. But what I will say is that doing it in WWE, could she, take that up a notch? And there really isn't any company out there that could give her the exposure that WWE can. As much as I want to say and love Japan, they're just don't have the exposure that WWE does for a number of different reasons. So if it's exposure, you got to go to WWE. If it's wrestling, you can do whatever you want, because if she wants to take the indies by storm, she absolutely would. If she wants to go and go on a world tour, do a thing here, pop up in Mexico there, kind of like what not Ricochet, but Mustafa Ali's been doing. You don't know where he's going to pop up, but it's going to be damn good.
The ultimate freelancer.
Yeah, the ultimate freelancer. Hell, I mean, it would be kind of crazy, and it sounds crazy in my head, but she could be the biggest fish in a good but really small pond down there in TNA. I mean, obviously that would be insane, but she would have to go there because she wants to be there, because for a number of reasons they don't have the money, the capital to give her what she needs financially. But and the ball's really in her court. I think it's WWE or not too much else if she wants to really be on the biggest stage. Now, as far as what Tony Khan do, I don't know. There's much more that he can do other than add more zeros to the check.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. That's probably for him. It's probably all about I can put more zeros on this check or give you more dates off or something like that. But AEW, that goes. The platform's the platform. It kind of is at the level it's at, and there's so much you're gonna get from that. Our buddy Damian G checking in from Urgent Care Unknown. Damian, we hope you're doing okay tonight. We're all thinking about you here at the show. He's saying with AEW signing Mina Hirakawa, it helps her to stay. But if I'm her, I do another tour of Japan where she would be more popular than before she left. So you're thinking, okay, so Damian's thinking the Japan deal. Do like, the indies, kind of do the greatest hits tour of
Yeah. But that depends on like what she wants, like just in general. And I think that if you want to go and being popular in Japan is like, it's just Japan. WWE will make it to Japan. And we know that they are expanding exponentially around the world in real time. So she could be a person that WWE needs. Like, they have Stephanie Vaquer, from Chile, and that's a market from Latin America that she absolutely represents dutifully. Mariah May, huge in Japan, of course, and that's another market that she represents, especially I think she is British, right? So so that's another thing too. So it's just like, what do you want out of it? Because I don't think there's anybody going to argue that you must go here for great wrestling. There's great wrestling everywhere. But I think the exposure on a global scale, it's WWE.
Yeah.
GCW goes to Japan. It's not even, Yeah.
If it's all about exposure, then the answer's simple.
Yeah.
And Lord knows that might be what it's about right now. And I think the timing would be great because we got all this. They could use a new face in the mix on the main roster that would shake things up, I think. Because Lord knows Charlotte's return ain't lighting the world on fire. Tiffany Stratton they brought up, and it seems like she's gone kind of flat. We'll see how she comes out of her match with Charlotte at WrestleMania. But a new face from outside immediately getting inserted into things in the mix. I think Mariah May is in a great place at a great time to where she can definitely, I think either way, she's going to get paid. She's going to get paid one way or another. So if I'm her, it's just a matter of what else can you do other than just give me a lot of money? Right. What are the other perks? Whether it's exposure, whether it's the schedule, whether it's like outside opportunities and other things. Who knows what else she might be interested in? But I think she can really write her own ticket and just, God, it's been a long time since I've seen someone in this position where I'm like, the timing is so good for her personally. Where it's like, it's great to see a talent in that position where it's like, damn, it's working out for the talent for once, where she can look at the promoters and be like, no. You need to hook me up. You need to hook me up. I'm not begging for nothing. You need to hook me up. I am in a great position right here where people are going to be fighting over me. You don't see that too often.
Now, okay, playing devil's advocate, right? Based on everything that we've said, we have Mariah May. And we know damn well that she obviously has the WWE look that they want. Whatever that factory is outside of Stamford, Connecticut, where they just, you're 5'9", blonde. We know that's what they want. And we know that the Mariah May would fit there. The biggest thing that she did in AEW, and obviously, if you've seen her work in Japan, you know that she's pretty damn good. And, she's a good wrestler in general. But the thing that America knows her for is feuding with Toni Storm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, yes, Mariah May held up her end of the bargain when it came to that feud itself. But we really haven't seen her work outside of that spectrum. And more importantly, her persona was playing off of Toni Storm itself.
Yeah.
Toni Storm, right. So if Toni Storm was still with Saraya and what's her face, the Outcasts or Misfits or whatever they were called.
Yeah.
Right. If they were still doing that thing, then who would Mariah May be when she got there? because their entire story was based on their their Japanese background, wrestling in Japan, and then going through with that, and of course bringing Mina into the mix and going through with that, and then having the long-standing feud that they just blew off. So we've really only seen her work with one person that she should work for, obviously with, but we really haven't seen her do that much else in AEW. So how would she fare in WWE, given playing with a whole new roster that we really have never seen her interact with, in a meaningful way? Is that something that, who would she be in WWE basically? And that's also, they obviously have their own style, and yeah, things are very similar, but different. Triple H is Vince until he is. How do we know that Mariah May is going to be something other than just blonde and tall and boobs and British or whatever WWE has her be? Because this feud with Toni Storm was a very specific one, and we haven't really seen her outside of that feud. So that would be my one concern of be careful what you wish for. You're going to bring her in, you're going to pay her all this money based on what you saw in AEW, when really that was just she went up to bat once and hit a home run. That doesn't make her the next, home run king.
Yeah. How integral was Toni Storm to that whole thing? And
right.
Can she hang on her own? But in some ways, heck, if she stays in AEW, that's not have to be the same story now, because they've told that story. They have to move on from it now. So no matter what she's doing, she's got to interact and be involved with new people.
And the reason why I would say in AEW may be a better fit for her, because at least we know that she can fall back on the wrestling if the story doesn't come to fruition. In WWE, they're obviously more story-based, story-driven, high-concept characters and stuff like that, where you don't really get a chance to put on a 15-minute, high-profile match, often. Right. So
not on the regular.
Yeah. Not on the regular. So if she doesn't click with whoever her dance partner is, not through no one's fault, if it just doesn't work, it doesn't work. Then what? And we've kind of seen that happen where, I hate to say it, but the New Day. You thought that you were getting something different. You thought it was new. They're about to go and do something, and then I don't know where they're being held hostage, but we haven't found them yet. So WWE is quick to jump on something and then absolutely bury it when it doesn't work out in the way that they intended to the first time. I would hate for that to be the case with Mariah May, considering her wrestling acumen and being stuck in WWE purgatory.
Yeah, if I'm her when I'm talking to these people, assuming she's going to test the waters, I think that'd be a big part of the conversation. Be like, okay, well, if I'm coming in here, what do you got for me? Where do you see me? How do you see me plugged in? See if they present something to her to, can sink her teeth into to get her attention. Because Lord knows it's going to take money. So it's all about the other perks, like we were talking. All right, let's move on from that. A little bit more women's wrestling talk in a roundabout way here, because this was a shocker this week that came out of nowhere. Gail Kim and TNA Wrestling have parted ways all of a sudden. The rumor going around is that there is new management involved in behind the scenes in TNA. And apparently, a lot of times in new management, they like to bring in their own people. So there's a lot of stuff going on with, a lot of people behind the scenes were let go. And this came out of nowhere and apparently shocked a lot of people, but very similar to when Scott D'Amore was let go about a year ago from there. But from all reports, Gail Kim was beloved as far as her work she was doing behind the scenes, and just nothing but good things you would hear about her work with talent relations in TNA and just helping people out back there. So it's created this immediate idea of okay, if Gail Kim's available, someone needs to pick her up post haste and get her working behind the scenes for them. And Lord knows there's a bunch of places she could be doing that. So I guess the question is, who do you think where could she benefit the most? As far as a company who really needs her behind the scenes. I got an idea. We've just been talking about him, but yeah, I don't know. This is there's a lot I think she could add to some places that we've talked about over the years.
No, I mean, I don't think that there's anywhere she couldn't go where she wouldn't be a benefit, an immediate boost to wherever she winds up, which is both a good and a bad thing. I don't see AEW changing their stance on women's wrestling within the company
Just because
to
they get her.
allow for Gail Kim to come in and revamp it. We've seen that story happen a couple times. It just really hasn't worked out in a meaningful way. Yes, we did spend a lot of time talking about Toni Storm versus Mariah May, but realistically, that was kind of a symbiotic relationship that was going to work no matter where you put it. Outside of that, the women's division really has fallen off of a cliff where you have one of the best stories of the year being told and ended, and then whatever they have after that, it's a very, 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 very fall down. Now, where could Gail Kim go? That really depends on what she obviously wants to do. Does she want to travel 300 days a year? Does she want to, make the towns and do all the things? Does she still want to wrestle? I don't see why she could or couldn't do that, but I just don't see, and in this stage in her career, why she would need to be on the road that often, that much, forever. So, I think that the very long and short of it is, I can see her working with like an MLW or even up there in Canada with Maple Leaf Pro. I don't see them having the resources to use her talents, but I do think that they could probably use her more than anyone, just because I think AEW is too stubborn to change their women's ways, and WWE has a good thing going already. Hey, 2 Chainz, you're back. Your mic is kind of hot though.
Sorry about that. Let me just say, Gail leaving TNA was like it's a business now. It wasn't like shock, angered, or anything of that sort. It's unfortunate, but it's interesting because I do think, and I said this in our group chat, Shawn is making that call. Shawn Michaels is making that call because having that sort of presence in the NXT locker room, considering the NIL stuff, considering the Evolve stuff, considering the legends and future greats, all these people that's coming through the pipeline. Hell, with Mickie James even stepping away from the show, Michelle McCool stepping in. I can see Gail Kim fitting right in that mode. There's a lot she can do. I also think that she wants to go out on her own terms. She's been itching for the idea to get in the ring just one more time. And whether it's a Royal Rumble or whether it's something she works in NXT, something. And then you just give her a Legends contract, let her do one of these coaching things. There's space for her. And I think she's, her presence in the locker room, because let's not forget, it wasn't that long ago that TNA had the definitive best women's roster in all of pro wrestling, and you knew who was heading the charge there. So yeah, it makes sense. Or yes, if she goes up to Maple Leaf Pro with Scott D'Amore, obviously good things could reoccur there. So she'll be fine. This is probably one of those things, a blessing in disguise. Because the sky is is open for her, and the doors and the opportunities limitless. So let's see what's next, and then let's have a conversation there.
Yeah, I can't imagine she's going to be on the market for long. Lord knows Jim Ross himself was putting out the word that he's like, someone needs to pick her up immediately. So it's like everyone in the world is going to bat for her and saying like, look, hire this girl, put her somewhere. Like you're a fool not to pick her up. So I'm sure she has already been getting calls about stuff. It's probably just a matter of, like we were talking about Mariah May. It's a matter of what's the best fit, what's most interesting, what's most beneficial to her, as far as like dates and all this, and how much of a workload it's going to be. So yeah, I don't think we're going to be waiting too long to hear one way or another where Gail Kim lands next. So okay, that was an easy one. It's just that came out of nowhere this week, so it was kind of like, okay. Do we want to talk about Saraya? and her podcast launched today. At the
Sure.
end of her AEW run. So I guess the most interesting thing out of this is like, I thought the most interesting was she's very much spinning things right away where it's like, I love WWE. She seemed like she was putting the feelers out there immediately about, hey, I'm available. I'm no longer with AEW again. And I'd love to be involved with things again. That's how I'm in the story tonight. It's like there's a lot of people on the market suddenly on the women's side. And people are looking for roles. They're looking for things to be doing. So I don't know. I think with Saraya, for me, the biggest issue is I look at this and I'm looking at it just like a couple weeks ago when we talked about Rusev and him being let go. And I'm like, it's people from about a decade ago that had a big role then. They were a hot property then, but there were injuries involved. They went away and time has marched on. And now we're in 2025 and I just don't see how they can't be used at the same level they were used before, unless it's like, in a much smaller company. So they either got to take a smaller role, they got to be used in a different format or something. But it's like the days of women's champion main eventer, I'm not seeing that in 2025. Even if she just did the Wembley show was 2 years ago? Yeah. Where she won the title in Wembley, the first one. Yeah. So it's like that. I think that was kind of like, okay, that was the peak for AEW. And we went on since there. Now it's like, I'm looking at like, just like I'm looking at that Rusev deal where it's like, yeah, okay. Yeah. At a time 10 years ago, you had a big spot. But in 2025, I can't see that same role. I can't see it fit.
Listen, all respect to everything that she's done with the company, and this all in pro wrestling, her and her family. At this rate now, she's a nostalgia act. When you talk about being in the main event, as we talked about with WrestleMania, you have to move the needle. Now, if there's a question if she can move the needle, well, we just look back at the recent sample doses of her time at AEW. Unfortunately, yes, we understand the predicament with women in time and all that other good stuff. But yes, no, she didn't. Much like a certain other Mercedes Moné also isn't, if you ask me. So I think the main event picture is long gone. But I don't know if you all brought this up, but I mean, like, I do think there's a spot if they are rumoring, if the rumors are true, and you talk about Evolution coming back, and now you definitely have a lot of names that makes that pay-per-view, that event, even more special, because now Saraya, whether she comes back a page or not, becomes a dream match of sorts. And that could be fun. That could be interesting. Who's the stars of yesterday versus the future? What does that look like? So yeah, and then let's not forget there's a whole roster baking on NXT that's looking for that shot. There's so much they can do there. So yeah, bringing her in to give others the rub, or to also throw her back in a coaching position, or a part-time something, or leading a stable, which she did successfully when she was injured. I think there's opportunity there. But main event is not something I'm interested in, not something I think is a smart business move. So hopefully she understands that it's not like Punk here, and I know it's situation or conversation you can have on both ends here, but it's not like Punk, if you ask me. It's not this is not a benefit to the business per se. This would just be something very much pertaining to the wrestling space for WWE.
So we talk about whenever we talk about people leaving a company and going to a different company. Where should they go? How should they get there and stuff? We always base it on their name, the weight of their name. Mm-hmm. And Saraya, Paige, whatever you want to go with, her name still could have weight. However, in AEW, the women's division has always been there as Achilles' heel, full stop. So if you are a big woman that with a lot of weight behind your name, I don't know if I'm going to AEW. There's a lot of zeros that would have to be behind that. That would make me go there. Yeah. And because I haven't seen a single one that would make you go, oh yeah, this is the right one. They've hit on a couple things, But how many times did Toni Storm have to go through a thing? I mean, she wasted 6, 7, 8 months before she went and got it revamped. And then when she tried to go back, it didn't work. And they said, all right, okay, we're going to have to like end this officially. But, and that's still one. And we know that they have talent. It's never been about the talent. It's been about the time. It's been about the management. It's been about the placement. So, unfortunately for Saraya, her AEW career isn't something that I would say, like, yeah, based on that, this is where you go. But for her, if it's been about the ability to prove yourself and wrestle, she could be a big fish in a very small pond, literally anywhere else but WWE and AEW. I mean,
that's true.
If it's about the wrestling and less about the money, obviously the money is important. But if it's less about the money and more about the wrestling, literally go anywhere else with a streaming deal or a TV deal of some sort. Show up. Oh shit! What is Saraya Knight doing in insert company here? Oh my god! The internet popped for a second. And my God, if you actually have a decent match with whoever the hell, wherever the hell you have it, wow.
Listen,
go ahead.
Let's go back to Evolution one more time. The biggest match that can happen right now for her.
Okay.
And it should happen at that pay-per-view if it is to happen, because absolutely all eyes will be on it, because the first one was iconic, legendary, and everybody's been
rumored to be this summer.
Mm-hmm.
You get her signed. You don't back up the Brinks truck, but you definitely open up the pockets just a little bit. You get her signed. You make sure she's back in top tier wrestling shape, and then you make the call. You make the call to a good old lady who is just sitting in Chicago that everybody has been waiting for years to get back. I'm trying to tell you, if you can book an AJ Lee and Paige match at Evolution,
the kids would eat it up. You're right. You are right.
The conversation about star power and everything goes away, because that is the biggest match on that card, bar none. I don't care what else they put together. Everybody's tuning in for that one.
And as the perfect example of what we were talking about earlier, where some things are not for you, because that match is not for me. But the kids out there, I know they would eat it up. They absolutely would eat that up, because Lord knows every damn Women's Royal Rumble.
Where's AJ?
Is AJ Lee going to show up? Is AJ going to show up? And then at this point, yeah, if Evolution is happening this summer as is rumored, that's where you do it. That's where you have her show up, if she's going to be showing up, especially if it's like a one-time deal.
Yes,
you do it at Evolution.
Yep.
Her and Paige, that makes a lot of damn sense. Makes a lot of sense.
But do you think that Paige, and again, we haven't even talked about Rusev, who's obviously, I think is in the same boat. I think Paige is in Charlotte Flair territory at this point, where it's just that people just like to hate her. Like, it's just cool to hate her regardless. Some of the hate, may be actually justified. Most of it isn't. And it's just, I don't care what she does, wherever she does it, I'm going to hate. She has, she has a podcast. Let me go over there and hate. Who does she interview? Let me hate them too. And because I just think it's just, people think that it's just cool to do that. Let me just, kick her while she's down. Yeah, I don't mind, her versus AJ Lee for the nostalgia, but then what if that match doesn't happen in WWE? What if that match happens in freelance wrestling in Chicago? Again, yes, the prestige of a WWE premium live event notwithstanding, but it would be more impactful, arguably more impactful, if it just happened on a random indie show where the internet just experiences it organically, and they go 15 minutes and tear the house down. I'm not saying that it should happen versus a pay-per-view, but what I am saying is that there's a lot less surprise with wrestling nowadays, and for something to just organically happen and somebody to just magically show up would be cool than just, oh well,
that match ain't about the wrestling.
It's not. It's absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's for the moment.
It would be an exhibition, essentially. It would be an exhibition.
Right. But that's kind of the thing. And then you have a guy like Rusev, same thing, the injuries. But I think a lot of the problem is that if you don't have a 5-year idea, you got to come up with a 1-year idea every year. And a lot of these people don't have that. Rusev did his like video game gimmick, or he owned a laundromat or whatever the hell this gimmick was, and it was weird, and that ended. And then he literally tried to fight God. Okay, that was weird. And then he got injured and went away. It's like, well, what else do you have? What else you got? Because you being a convenience store owner or whatever the hell it was ain't going to work. All right, cool. You're going to fight the church. All right, well, the Crusades lasted too long. We don't have that kind of time. What next you got? And he just doesn't have it.
Yeah.
So, well, we can't really do anything with you now. Now you're just there. Now you just got to wait out your contract. And that's a very different connotation of like Ray Phoenix, who is just like, hey, I need to go with my brother. No, you're actually good. We're going to lock you up and put you in the Luchador dungeon, down there with Fuego del Sol. We got pooses on the table. Set your ass up. You'll see you in a year. So we know what the difference is. And Saraya really didn't have much after her, WWE, now I'm free. Okay, now what are you going to do with it?
We have to go book to Wembley. We can have you win the title at Wembley. Then after that, it was kind of like, okay.
Listen,
that's it.
Listen, let's just keep it 100 real quick. And I know we're on our time. Mandy Sachs also just did a podcast where she was very felt disrespected because she wasn't mentioned in terms of being a double champ. Which by the way, when the championships were unified, they weren't necessarily considering them 2 titles. They were unifying them, which
she was
means
never
they were
defending the UK title. It was absorbed.
So let's calm down a little bit there. But nonetheless, just to be clear, in that podcast where she talked about her status with them being unknown. So that's why she sort of opened up the idea of saying, if there's an opportunity or she can do a one-off or something like, but she just doesn't know. She doesn't know how they view her and what's the chance, what's the chances, but opportunity that may be on the table for her. Paige going out there, or Saraya going out there on her podcast, basically lobbying her availability, also lets you know that she's unsure of her status too, because everybody who was a free agent or who was let go, they didn't have to go on the podcast to say anything. They didn't have to do any of this sort of handing out their resumes. They were just
very much today was like, hey, I'm over here.
Yeah, we don't hear Malachi Black talking about anything, Ray Phoenix talking about anything, Pentagon talking about anything, Starkey Man talking about anything.
Those moves are ready to be made.
Just happened, So as much as we may want her back, and I talk about fantasy booking, I think we're a little ways from it. But hey, in all due respect, right now is not the time because they're on the road to WrestleMania, and that's the only thing they should be focusing on, is making sure the execution of the biggest show of the year is done right. Bringing more people in right now just doesn't seem to make any sense, but we'll see. But anyway, to even counteract that argument, Phoenix is on the way, and we know that, but he was already a part of the plan. They just had to get through the loopholes of that contract. So,
yeah, and to be fair, like not taking away anything from Paige or Mandy Rose or even Rusev, if they do go to WWE, which would be the logical choice, what do they do there? I mean, outside of being a coach, older veteran mentor, Ethan Page kind of a role in NXT, what do they do there? Because realistically, if Mariah May goes, well, that's your blonde.
Yeah. And
add her to the other list of other blondes that you got, because they already have Mariah May at home, but they don't like Tiffany Stratton anymore. Oops. So, or Bliss or Flair or everyone else that they have that could be Mariah May that isn't. So then if Paige goes there, what does she do? They have so many other people ahead of her. Hell, even in NXT as a 4-time competitor. The same thing with Rusev. Do they need him? They do not, because they have other big burly guys that can throw people, 50 feet across the ring. They've moved on, and you're not unique enough anymore, to make a niche for yourself. So, they have Paige. Well, they got Cora Jade. Do we need Paige now?
Yeah, we'll see.
And that's
this will be an interesting one,
right
over the next couple months. So,
right.
all right, we did a little extra time tonight. So let's do the quick little wrap up here. So every Thursday night, 8 p.m., your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast is streaming live here on YouTube, Twitch, over on X. After the fact, the video feed continues to reside at YouTube. So if you came in late, you can check out the video after the fact. It's there all week. Keeps hanging out there. And of course, the podcast version drops on all your favorite podcast platforms shortly thereafter. So if you're looking for audio, we have you covered on that too. On social media, it's at Big Gold Belt across the board, whether we're talking Instagram, X, Blue Sky, even on all the platforms. Big Gold Belt is where you can find us on social media. And of course, on the web, biggoldbelt.com, the home of Big Gold Belt media, entertainment, pop culture, fandoms, and more. Since the Big Boss Man is here tonight, and there was a lot of stuff I saw going on in the last 24 hours with chairs and things like that. That there's clearly things happening. Clearly, big things are happening. Names being announced, but I don't know. Something else you want to drop on us media wise?
Yeah.
Well,
Stop hating on Snow White. Go see it. It's definitely the narrative behind it. It's definitely not worth. I think it's perfectly what it is. It's definitely not bad. It's definitely not as for whatever other things people are attaching to it. I definitely think Snow White is exactly what you think it is.
Snow White is no different than Captain America. People want to. Captain America is the Charlotte Flair movie of the year. You want to hate because you want to hate. Just admit that you hate Charlotte Flair and go.
That's all it is. That is all it is. Go see it.
But Snow White is not good. And
it didn't move the needle. Just like any other live action princess movie that they've done, Disney princess they've done. So like that's where I'm like, I don't know what everybody thought. I guess for whatever reason they thought Thanos was going to show up in that and do some shit. Anyway,
he should have.
Yeah, for movies this week, I don't know what movies come out this week, but I will say this: go watch the show The Studio on Apple TV Plus. It's amazing, and I'm at CinemaCon next week, so there'll be a bunch of live coverage from all. If you don't know what CinemaCon is, it's a theater owner, but studio convention where they're going to present their all of their upcoming slate of films to theater owners, so that theater owners can see what they want to play in their theaters, while also people and vendors are there to sell things and products to the theater owners. So we'll have a lot of updates on upcoming things from all the major studios next week. If you stay a look at the Twitter page.
Yeah. So also, just for the record, CinemaCon is not open to the public. It is a trade show. It's put on by the National Association of Theater Owners. So the things that they're talking about at the show and presented at the show,
they changed their name, by the way. NATO changed their name. Yeah, they did.
Oh, good for them.
Yeah, because that conflict of interest of like NATO, which one in DC?
Right. But they present the thing. It's kind of like Comic-Con for theater owners, and the changes that you may see in your local cinema next year are the things that they talk about at CinemaCon next week. As far as movies this week, The Woman in the Yard, which looks weird as hell, it comes out this weekend. If you haven't seen Snow White, don't. If Working Man with Jason Statham comes out this weekend also, that's going to be in Dolby Cinema and IMAX. So if you want to see Snow White in IMAX or so, actually do it, because they will be leaving that theater soon. Death of a Unicorn is an A24 movie, so those are always hit or a miss. And if you haven't seen, Salman Khan is in Sikandar. That's the big Eid movie of the year in India. I love Salman Khan. He could do no wrong. That's why he hit a man and killed him and got off without a scratch. But all of that stuff is happening, and I think because 'tis the season, The Chosen is coming back into theaters for a run of those shows that's happened. So that's all happening this weekend.
There you go. And I'll quickly throw in from Damian G at the undisclosed urgent care location, The Penguin Lessons, fun little indie film where a penguin brings folks together. Damian, we hope you are feeling better tonight, and you will be back with us next week.
Yes,
all right,
sir.
folks, we had an extra overpacked show tonight, but we had lots to talk about, so that was good. So we'll be back next Thursday, 8 p.m. Until then, You all stay safe, watch some movies, watch some wrestling. We're on the road to WrestleMania. So we got all that stuff going on, but we'll see you next week on Thursday night at 8 p.m. Until then, we'll talk to you later from your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. Stay safe, folks. Talk to you later. Bye.